After finding all of these amazing things in Antarctica, it made me start thinking, if they have been hiding all of this in Antarctica, and it seems pretty obvious that Antarctica was recently connected to South America, and I believe, from the maps that I've shown, it had to be around the 1700s, at least. Because there's no way for them to have had such detail of the landmass in Antarctica, because how Antarctica looks now with the ice is completely different than what the land underneath looks like. And I'm sure most of you know that. So how could these, ship captains or, these cartographers be making these maps that had essentially perfect structure of the land that we didn't even know until quite recently, until we had the radar technology and the ground penetrating radar? I mean, very recently. Maybe the last few decades, really. So how did they know what it looked like in the 15, 16, 1700s? And so all of those things got me to thinking, well, if they've been essentially lying to us about that, what else about science and history have they been keeping that would be tied to this? And it brought me to evolution and Darwinism, which honestly I think a lot of people are just a little bit, they kind of mesh the two. And I really don't believe that Darwin was, although he is considered the father of evolution, from what I have read from his book, Origins of Species, it wasn't his main thing. He essentially spoke about, survival of the fittest and, adaptations. Not so much as we came from a rock, amino acids mixed together and then bam, everything came together in one fell swoop, honestly, quite unbelievable. But, as someone who appreciates science, I love science, I love doing science experiments, and everything, science is amazing. And that's why I'm concerned about the pseudoscience of certain things, like treating evolution as if it's a fact. Kind of like treating Antarctica being frozen for 20 million years as a fact, when we have found fossils, we have found things that are just absolutely undeniable via just using Google Earth Pro, and then oddly enough, a couple weeks later, they come out in some mainstream media article like, oh look, we found this, it's brand new information. Whatever. But so I started looking into this, and I had no idea there are thousands of scientists that are questioning Darwin. Not just scientists either, mathematicians also. So a lot of people in the academic world, and obviously a lot of other people, but I'm going to try to keep this separate from creationism, because people seem to lump those together, and then once that you are a creationist, then they just ad hominem attack you by calling you stupid and all of these things. So I just want to read through what some of these scientists have to say about Darwinism. And this site is actually called Descent from Darwinism. And it's where over 1,000 scientists have signed this petition or whatever to allow people to research other stuff. That's sad. It is so sad that in science, something that is where you're supposed to be testing things and doing all of these things, it is suppressed, and you can't do any of that. No, you can't. You have to do this, otherwise you're not getting funding. You are ostracized. You are bullied off of campus. It's absolutely insane, the stories I've read from these professors. It's crazy. And so it's almost like they're their own detriment, because when you start doing that, people start getting suspicious. Like, why won't you let me look at... So I'm going to read through some of this, and then we're going to look at some evidence and things like that. But I think these are very interesting because they don't talk about creationism, whereas all of these people that are calling people evolution denialist, it's a theory. But anyway, when they're calling people this, they're acting like creationism is their basis, and it's not. These scientists are just actually concerned about science, and they feel that there's not enough evidence to only push this, and that's what they're doing. They're pushing it. They're not like teaching. Okay, we have Chris Williams, PhD, biochemist from Ohio State University. As a biochemist and software developer who works in genetic and metabolic screening, I am continually amazed by the incredible complexity of life. For example, each of us has a vast computer program of 6 billion DNA bases, and every cell that guided our development from fertilized egg specifies how to make more than 200 tissue types and ties all of these together in numerous highly functioning organ systems. Few people outside of genetics or biochemistry realize that evolutionists still cannot provide any substantive details at how all of this became the origin of life. Because we're just told that, yeah, that's what it is, that the scientists say it. But from what he's saying, a lot of biochemists, a lot of microbiologists have some, and genetics, especially genetics questions, like, how did just a couple amino acids mix together and get heated up and then boom, here's tons of people, tons of plants, all of these things. It's just silly. So exactly how did the genetic code linking nucleic acids to amino acid sequence originate? Clearly, the origin of life, the foundation of evolution, is still virtually all speculation and little, if no fact at all. Alright, let's see some other ones. Okay, Edward Peltzer, University of California, San Diego, at Scripps Institute. As a chemist, the most fascinating issue for me revolves around the origin of life. Before life began, there was no biology, only chemistry. And chemistry is the same for all time. What works or not today worked or didn't back in the beginning. So our ideas about what happened on Earth prior to the emergence of life are eminently testable in the lab. They should be, right? And what we have seen thus far, when the reactions are left unguided, as they would be in a natural world, is not much. Indeed, the decomposition of reactions and competing reactions outdistance of synthetic reactions by far. It is only when intelligent agents, meaning a person, inserts certain genes. He's talking about, I won't get into too much of the the scientific-y stuff. But so he just says he goes on, but I'll leave this link in the pinned comments. For these reasons, I have serious doubts about whether the current Darwin paradigm will ever make any type of additional progress. Professor Colin Reeves at Coventry University, Darwinism was an interesting idea in the 19th century when hand-waving explanations gave a plausible, if not properly scientific framework into which we could fit biological facts. However, what we have learned since then, since the days of Darwin, throws doubt on natural selection's ability to create complex biological systems. And we still have little more than hand-waving as an argument. That's absolutely true. How come we are seeing fossils of the same frogs or the same dragonflies or the same birds now, and we can find what they consider 500,000-year-old ones? How's that possible? How did that not change in 500,000 years? Or they supposedly say 500,000 years. Who knows what it is? Okay, let's see. I can't even say this guy's name. He's a pathologist, a doctor and a professor at the Medicine for Autonomous University. I signed the scientific dissent from Darwinism statement because I'm absolutely convinced of the lack of true scientific evidence in favor of Darwinism dogma. Nobody in the biological sciences, medicine included, needs Darwinism at all. Darwinism is certainly needed, however, in order to pose as a philosopher, because, let me say this, I should have said this in the beginning. Most people think of Darwin like, oh, he was a scientist. No, he was a theologist. He had a bachelor's degree in theology. I have a bachelor's degree in biology. But, he's Darwin. In order to pose as a philosopher, since it's primarily a worldview, and an awful one, as Bernard Shaw used to say. But they have thousands of these. Let me see. Why over 1,000 are now rejecting Darwin's theory of evolution. But it goes on and on. And, this in itself should raise questions like, should we still be teaching this in school? Because they teach it at most schools as if it's fact. At any type of federally funded schools, your government, regular public schools especially, they teach this as fact. Whereas it's not at all. Evolution is absolutely not a fact. And like that person says, it's theory at best. It's pseudoscience in some ways, because like Piltdown Man, they actually took a human head, put an ape jaw on it or something. I forget it was Piltdown Man or the other one. And they like glued it together and said, oh, here you go. This was your ancestor. It's just absolute fraud. And they've done that with many other things just to try to prove this. Why are they trying to prove this so bad? Why? Why not just be honest scientists and let the evidence fall where it may? That's not what they're doing. Same thing with Antarctica. Why not? Why are you going to tell us it's this, and then we have other evidence, you even have other evidence saying that these fossils definitely showed this connection, but, like always, they just want you to... I think they just realize so many people don't pay attention. to things like this, like the fossils found and stuff like that, that they're like, oh, maybe they won't put two and two together. Or, you know, if we badger them enough and call them stupid enough, then they'll just give up. Kind of like, you know, these evolutionists. I wouldn't even say evolutionists that are doing this. It's the atheist sector of the evolution spectrum, and those are the ones that are just absolutely just mean. Like, I've looked in the comments and they're horrific, just disgusting. There's no intelligent conversation. It's just like, you're this, you're that, because how stupid of you to believe in God and all of these things. Well, you realize that you believe that you came from a rock. Yeah. Some stuff grew on a rock. Things happen. Then something led to something else. Then we had like a fish. And then we had something climbed out of the water. And then bam, we have people. See, they want to show you just like the ape man, and that could be kind of convincing. You know, it's like, okay, ape man, caveman, man now. But they don't often show the extent to which, if evolution was actually true, where it would have to start from. They show it in some places, but they don't show it very often. They just show the man. Or they'll show, like, just the whale one. They don't show that every single thing living today would have came from this hot soup, is essentially, they even kind of call it that. This soupy mess that just sprang up life. And then turned into all kind of different things. Your ancestor is like a piece of broccoli? I mean, or a rock. I mean, both, really. I mean, because it's like, it all came from a rock. Not Iraq, you know, but a rock. It's really laughable when you think about it. It truly is, like, laughable when you actually sit back and think about it. But evolutionists, they use this argument, because I've watched a whole bunch of them already, and they say, oh, you just don't understand evolution. You obviously don't understand it. Yes, I understand it perfectly well, but it's just a lot funnier just to say it like this, because it really is like that. You came from a soupy hot mess on a rock, and then things started twirling up, and bam, we have amazing DNA. But yet we have never seen this ever happen ever again. Never. So how did it happen? We have seen things mutate downward, as like with genes, we have mutations in our genes that, you know, have Down syndrome and different traits, you know, cystic fibrosis, sickle cell, you know, go on and on. But we have not yet had anything that didn't have, like, genetically modified to where, you know, Monsanto or somebody goes and does something, an intelligent design from the exterior, go and say, oh, you know what, I'm going to try this with this plant to see if it does better. It's the only time we've had any type of upswing, you know, to where it's not like a mutation, to where it's something that's more of a negative. You know, like cystic fibrosis is a negative. You know, you're not going to live as long and all of these things. But, you know, you can get bigger tomatoes, you can get all of these things, but it's not going to turn into a Dalmatian. Again, I know, it's a joke. Obviously, a tomato's not going to turn into a Dalmatian, but if we all came from this one soupy mess, it's really not that big of a stretch, because that's real. It's like, you could have became a cucumber, or you could have became a ape man. I mean, it's seriously like laughable. If you put creationism aside, just think about it in a scientific way. Like, our DNA, our just, how is this possible? It's not possible. I don't know. Let's look at some videos that explain things better. Anyway.